The club pulsed with dark neon lights and heavy bass. Bodies moving in chaotic, drunken harmony. I wasn't looking for anything, just a distraction. A reckless decision to forget about my ordinary life for one night. And then I saw him. Tall, sharp green eyes that cut through the crowd. Messy red hair. Wild but somehow controlled. Like everything about him was calculated. His tailored black shirt stretched over a body that screamed power, dangerous, commanding, untouchable. I should have looked away. But I didn't. Instead, I walked right up to him, meeting his gaze like I had nothing to lose. "You look like trouble," I muttered, my voice smooth despite the pounding in my chest. His lips curled into a lazy smirk, the kind that made my stomach tighten. "And you look like someone who doesn't mind a little trouble." I didn't, not tonight. His hand found my waist before I could think too much about it, pulling me flush against his chest. Heat spread through me instantly. His grip possessive, claiming, like he was already making a decision I hadn't even spoken aloud. Then, his lips crashed onto mine. It was raw, hungry, demanding, a kiss that didn't ask, it took. And I let him. By the time we stumbled into my apartment, my heart was a thunderstorm, my mind a blur. I didn't know his name. Didn't care. All I knew was that I wanted more. And God help me, I had no idea just who I was inviting into my bed. I woke up to the sound of pounding. Not the good kind. The loud, headache-splitting, fist-on-wood kind that made me groan and bury my face deeper into the pillow. My head was a mess, hazy from sleep. Body still aching in the best possible way from last night. Last night, heat rushed through me as flashes of it came back. His rough hands, the way he took control, how he kissed me like he was starving. I reached out, expecting to feel the warmth of a body beside me. But the bed was empty. The sheets were rumpled, still carrying the faint scent of something dark and expensive. But he was gone. No note, no name. And now, someone was banging on my door like they had a vendetta against it. Bang, bang, bang. Police, open up. My stomach plummeted. I shot upright, heart slamming against my ribs. Cops? At my door? What the hell for? Panic roared through me as I scrambled out of bed, yanking on sweatpants, my mind racing through every possible reason they could be here. Noise complaint? Some bullshit mistake? I took a breath and yanked open the door. 2 officers stood outside, their faces stone-cold serious. The taller one lifted a photograph, eyes sharp as they studied my reaction. "Do you know this man?" I looked, and my blood turned to ice. It was him. Messy red hair, those piercing green eyes, the same smirk that had made my knees weak the night before. But he wasn't leaning over me this time. He wasn't pressing me against a bed, making me gasp his name that I never even knew. No, this was a mugshot. And beneath it, a name that meant nothing to me. But the words printed in bold beside it sure as hell did. Maximilian Moretti, suspected leader of the most powerful crime syndicate in the city. The room spun. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to work. I don't. The cop narrowed his eyes. "You sure? Because we have reason to believe you were with him last night." My pulse roared in my ears. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. Mafia. The actual freaking mafia. I had just slept with the city's most dangerous criminal. And now, the cops thought I was involved. The rest of the day was a blur. I ran, didn't pack, didn't think, just grabbed my keys, threw on a hoodie, and got the hell out of my apartment before the cops could come back with more questions I didn't have answers to. The city blurred around me, neon lights, wet pavement, cars rushing past as my pulse pounded louder than any of it. I didn't know where I was going. Just away. Away from the cops. Away from him. Jesus. One night. One reckless decision. And now I was tangled up with the freaking mafia. My skin felt clammy. Adrenaline crashing through me in waves. I needed to disappear. Lay low. Figure out how to scrub this whole mess off me before it sank in any deeper. But before I could even begin to figure that out, a black car slid up beside me. My stomach dropped. The back door swung open. 2 strong hands grabbed me. I barely had time to gasp before I was shoved inside. The door slammed shut. Tires screeched. And then, a voice. Low, smooth, dangerous. "You really thought you could run from me, Jamie?" The air inside the car was thick, too quiet, too charged. I pressed back against the leather seat. Every muscle in my body wound tight as the car sped through the city. The man sitting across from me didn't speak at first. He didn't have to. He just watched. His sharp green eyes flicked over me. Slow, unreadable, but heavy, like he was deciding exactly what to do with me. Maximilian Moretti. Last night, I had been moaning his name into a pillow. Now, I was his prisoner. My throat was dry, but I forced myself to speak. Listen, I don't know what's going on, but I swear. Shut up. I did. Instantly. Max leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. Voice eerily calm. I let you go this morning. Jamie. Gave you the chance to stay put. His fingers tapped against his thigh. Slow, deliberate, and yet, he continued. Here we are. Heat curled in my stomach. Fear, anger, something else I didn't want to name. You think I wanted to run? I shot back. I woke up to the cops at my door. Moretti, they showed me your mugshot. What the hell was I supposed to do? Wait for them to drag me in? His jaw ticked, but his expression didn't change. If you'd stayed, he said smoothly, I would have handled it. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Oh right, because trusting a mafia boss to keep me safe makes so much sense. The second the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Maximilian didn't move, but his eyes turned sharp as a blade. Then, he moved. 1 second, he was across from me. The next, he was right there, one hand braced on the seat beside my head, the other curling around my jaw. Not tight, not hurting, but firm, unyielding. You are safe, Jamie, he murmured, voice like silk over steel. His thumb brushed over my cheek, deceptively gentle. But you're mine now. My breath caught. You don't run from me. He continued, his grip tightening just slightly, enough to make my pulse skyrocket. You don't hide from me. His lips tilted in something close to amusement, but his eyes stayed cold. And you sure as hell don't try to disappear. My chest rose and fell too fast. Too uneven. You can't just. I can. His lips twitched. And I should have fought. Should have pulled away. Should have done something. But I didn't. Because despite the fear, despite the chaos spinning around me, there was something else curling deep in my stomach. Something dangerously close to want. And from the way Maximilian was looking at me, I had a feeling he knew it. The penthouse was everything I expected from a man like Maximilian Moretti, grand, expensive, and completely untouchable. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Dim golden light casting long shadows across marble floors. A place fit for a king. A king who had just claimed me as his. I stood near the entrance, frozen, as Max strode across the room like he owned not just this place, but the whole damn world. He loosened the top buttons of his black shirt, rolling up his sleeves, exposing strong forearms. Casual, completely unbothered, like he hadn't just kidnapped me off the street. You can breathe, Jamie, he said without looking at me, pouring himself a drink. You're not a prisoner. I let out a sharp laugh. Oh, so I can leave? Max took a slow sip of whiskey, his green eyes flicking up to meet mine, dark with amusement. You could try. My stomach twisted. That wasn't a yes. I took a breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Why am I here, Max? His gaze flickered with something unreadable. But then the smirk was back. He took another sip before setting his glass down. Because you ran, he said simply. And I don't like when things I own try to run. My blood ran cold. Own? I repeated, voice dangerously low. Max approached slowly, like a predator circling prey. His presence overwhelming. You think the cops at your door were bad? He murmured. You have no idea the kind of attention you just put on yourself. I was willing to let you go. Jamie, let you walk away. He reached out, brushing a finger along my jaw, light, teasing, like he was testing just how far he could push me. But now, everyone knows you're mine. That makes you valuable. I swallowed hard, heart pounding. I'm not part of your world. I said, voice tight. I don't want to be. Max's smile widened, but his eyes were sharp as glass. You don't have a choice. His hand ghosted down my arm, slow and deliberate, sending unwanted heat curling in my stomach. You see, Jamie, he continued, voice smooth as silk. A man like me doesn't get to be soft, doesn't get to trust people easily. But you, his fingers curled around my wrist, his grip firm but not painful. You got past my walls in a single night. I sucked in a breath. That makes you dangerous. A sharp chill shot through me. I yanked my arm back, shaking my head. You're insane. Max only chuckled, unfazed. I've been called worse. I turned away, fists clenching, my mind racing. I needed a plan, needed to get the hell out of here. But deep down, I already knew the truth. I wasn't escaping Maximilian Moretti. Not now. Not ever. I should have seen it coming. The moment I ran, the moment I got dragged back into Maximilian Moretti's world, I should have known it was only a matter of time before the cops found another way to get to me. And now, here I was, sitting alone in a dimly lit diner. A cheap coffee in front of me, across from a man who wore a badge under his coat. "You help us take down Moretti," the officer said, voice low, "and we make this all go away. No charges, no involvement, you get your life back." My fingers tightened around the ceramic cup. My life, the one I had before that night. Before him, all I had to do was say the word, and Maximilian Moretti would be in cuffs before sunrise. But instead of relief, my stomach twisted, because despite everything, despite the fact that he had kidnapped me, claimed me, made it clear I was his, he hadn't hurt me, hadn't used me or discarded me like he could have. No, he protected me. And now, I was about to hand him over to the people who wanted him gone. I forced my voice to stay even. "And if I say no?" The officer leaned forward, face impassive. "Then you're an accomplice. And Moretti? He won't protect you forever. The moment you stop being useful, you're disposable." I swallowed hard. "You have 24 hours. The officer stood, leaving a burner phone on the table. "When you're ready to make the right choice, call the number." Then he was gone, and I was left with a decision that could ruin everything. That night, I stood in front of the penthouse windows, looking down at the city, the burner phone heavy in my grip. Maximilian was across the room, on the phone, speaking in low, clipped Italian, his posture calm, controlled, powerful. Everything about him screamed danger. And yet, I felt safer with him than I ever did on my own. My fingers clenched around the phone. I could end this, right now. One call, that's all it would take. I took a breath. "You're thinking too loud." I jolted, spinning around. Max was standing there, phone gone, whiskey glass abandoned. Just him, watching me with those cutting green eyes. Reading me too easily. My throat went dry. "Don't lie to me." His voice was quiet, even, but there was an edge to it. Something sharp and unreadable. The silence stretched, suffocating. Then, softer, more dangerous. "Are you going to run, Jamie?" Everything inside me froze. Because this wasn't about the cops anymore. This was him asking me to make a choice. And God help me, I didn't know if I could betray him. Even if it destroyed me. I thought I was being careful. I thought I was smart. The burner phone was hidden. My escape plan was airtight. I knew where to go, who to call, how to vanish. Just one more night. That was all I needed. Then I'd be out of this mess. Or so I thought. Because when I stepped into the penthouse, heart racing, hands shaking, Maximilian was already waiting, sitting in the armchair like a king on a throne. Legs crossed, fingers steepled under his chin. Silent, still, but his eyes pinned me where I stood. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay even. "Didn't know you'd be back early." Max didn't blink. "Didn't know you were leaving." My stomach twisted. "Leaving?" I forced a dry laugh. "I don't know what you're." "Don't." Just one word. Low, calm, final. The air turned thick, heavy. My pulse thundered. Max stood, moving toward me slowly, like a predator circling prey. "I let you stay." His voice was silk over steel. "I let you breathe. I kept you safe." He stopped in front of me, towering, his scent dark and intoxicating. "And this is what you do with that freedom?" My jaw clenched. "I never asked for your protection." Something flickered across his face. "Something dark. Didn't you?" he murmured. The floor beneath me felt unsteady. This wasn't the reaction I expected. I had been prepared for rage, for threats, violence, fury. But this quiet, disappointed Maximilian was worse. So much worse. I opened my mouth, shut it, because what the hell was I supposed to say? Sorry I was planning to run? Sorry I don't know what the hell I'm doing anymore. Sorry that when you look at me like that, I can't breathe? I said nothing. And Maximilian, he just nodded once. Like he already knew my answer. Then he turned away, leaving me standing there, heart hammering, hating the way I suddenly felt like the villain in this story. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, The weight of it all pressed down on my chest like a boulder. Maximilian was asleep beside me. If he ever really slept. He looked peaceful in the dim light. His red hair a mess against the pillow. His breathing slow, steady, like he wasn't the most dangerous man I'd ever met. Like he wasn't the reason my entire life had flipped upside down. I turned onto my side, watching him, and something twisted in my gut. I was in too deep. Somewhere between running for my life and getting tangled in his world. I'd done the one thing I swore I wouldn't. I'd let him in, let myself believe, even for a second, that this could be something real. That I could have him without losing myself. But I knew better. There was no future here. Not for me, not with him. Because loving Maximilian meant living in the shadows. It meant looking over my shoulder forever. Wondering which night would be our last. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't be that person. I exhaled, rolling onto my back again. My pulse a mess. Tomorrow. This was it. A little more time, and I'd be gone. Out of his reach. Away from the danger. The chaos. Away from him. I told myself it was the right thing to do. That if I stayed any longer, I'd drown. That this was survival. But as I closed my eyes, listening to the quiet sound of his breathing, one thought whispered through my head. Soft, cruel, impossible to ignore. Then why does it feel like you're breaking your own heart? I needed to get out. Now. I didn't know how much Maximilian knew. Didn't know if his silence last night was acceptance or if he was just waiting for me to make my move. But I couldn't stay. Not after the way he looked at me. Not after the way my chest twisted like I had done something wrong just by trying to survive. I grabbed my bag, the burner phone, my heart a mess, hands shaking as I moved. But I did. I had to. The airport was right there. Past the security lines, past the gates, past the promise of a one-way ticket to freedom. I gripped my duffel tight, my fingers damp with sweat. Every instinct screamed at me to move faster. But I forced myself to stay calm. Rushing would get me noticed. Panic would get me caught. I was so close. One more hour and I'd be gone. No more Maximilian. No more cops. No more running. I took another step forward. And then the world cracked apart. Jamie Calloway, stop where you are. The words slammed into me like a gunshot. No, 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 no. Red and blue lights flashed against the airport windows. Shouts, heavy footsteps. People gasped, scrambling out of the way. And cops, everywhere. Blocking the doors, closing in, weapons drawn. My stomach plummeted, my vision tunneled. Move, Jamie. I turned on my heel. Down, now, too late. A body slammed into me from behind, driving me forward. My knees cracked against the pavement, pain flaring up my legs. Cold, hard weight crushed me into the ground. Don't fight it, a voice barked above me. Hands shoving my arms behind my back. Metal snapped around my wrists, tight, unforgiving. Handcuffs. Real, no way out. A sharp breath rattled through my chest. The concrete was freezing. The world buzzed around me, distant, unreal. I'd lost. I wasn't flying anywhere except straight to a jail cell. Jail sucked. The cell stank of sweat and bleach. The cot was stiff as hell. The fluorescent lights buzzed so loud they made my teeth itch. It had been days, or maybe just hours. I didn't know anymore. Time moved weird in here. And Maximilian? Nowhere. Not a whisper. Not a call. Not a goddamn thing. Guess that answered that. He wasn't coming. And why would he? I was a problem. A loose end. Letting me rot in this cell. Letting the cops throw the book at me. Was the easiest solution. I was stupid to think he'd care enough to do anything about it. A guard stomped past my cell. Keys jangling. Better get comfortable. Calloway. He sneered. You'll be here a long time. I rolled onto my side, staring at the cracked ceiling. Maybe I deserved that. Somewhere after midnight, the first sign that something was wrong was the alarm. Loud, jarring, cutting through the stale air like a war cry. Then, boom, the whole building shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Yelling erupted down the hall. Guards shouting, inmates hollering, footsteps pounding against the floor. I sat up fast, my pulse jackhammering. What the? The lights flickered. The ground trembled again. And then, gunfire. Panic exploded through the cell block. Someone grabbed the bars, screaming. The guards started barking orders. But it was too late. Chaos had already taken over. My heart slammed against my ribs as I pushed to my feet. gripping the cold metal cot. This wasn't just some riot. This was a war zone. A shadow moved past the bars, a man in all black. Not a guard, not a cop, a soldier. And then I knew. Maximilian. Holy shit. The alarms, the explosions, the chaos. This was him. He came for me. My stomach twisted, my head spun. Why? Why the hell would he do this? He could have walked away. He should have walked away. But instead, he was tearing the entire city apart for me. And there was no stopping it now. No going back. We were both criminals after this. Both. The safe house was cold. Quiet. It was the first time in hours that the world wasn't on fire. I sat on the edge of the couch, knees bouncing, my hands still shaking from everything. The jailbreak, the gunfire, the helicopters. Maximilian moved in front of me, silent, like he was waiting for me to say something. I stared at him, at the blood on his shirt, not his, at the crease between his brows, at the tension in his jaw. And then it hit me. He should have let me rot. Should have walked away. He didn't, because this wasn't just about control anymore. It wasn't just about power. It was about me. I swallowed hard. You could have left me. Maximilian tilted his head. I don't leave what's mine. My chest tightened. I hated how much that got to me. I should be pissed. I should be terrified. But all I could think was, I don't want him to leave either. And now? Now, it was too late for both of us.